Hi guys, so today in Oxford we're going to Oxford Castle, somewhere over there. I'll meet you there. So there's one of the towers, or maybe it's the only tower, not too sure. And I'm just showing you this courtyard here we've walked through. Is it the prison as well, Gill? Oh yeah, prison wing, 1852 to 56 this. Amazing. And if you're a regular watcher of the channel, you'll know it wasn't that long ago we went to Rhythm Prison, and that was good fun. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah, modelled on Pentonville Prison. A central space was surrounded by 150 identical cells, each housing a single prisoner held in isolation. When it closed in 1996, up to 3 men shared a cell. In 2006, it opened as a hotel. Ah, well, we just asked the lady, and she said the hotel or the or the castle, and now I know what she means. Look at that. I love that building there. I love the brick on it. So we'll go over here. I'm going to stop filming now because there's a load of kids there, but I'll catch you in a minute. Oxford Castle and Prison, and look at that mound. Got some really nice walls as well here. 1,000 years. That's older than me. That is absolutely older than me. So I'm just hoping I'm allowed to film inside. I shall let you know, obviously. Jill and I like that little seating area there. It looks really smart, built into the old wall there, but it's really quite nice. We've got the D wing there of the prison. So, oh, there's Oxford River cruises as well. Lovely jubbly. Okay, so we're just coming in now, a part of a tour, and just showing off the walls here.
Here though, the wheel was in the centre of the room and 16 prisoners were chained to it. They were pushing that wheel on a 2-hour shift each and every day. Now in theory, all that hard work which warped those floorboards out of shape, that was to pump water from the river just outside the Castle Mill stream into water tanks high up in the tower. The thing is though, those water tanks, they'd need to be drained almost immediately in order to fill up any buckets down here. So the hard work pumping water up there, it was pointless, and that was the point of course. This was hard labour introduced by the Victorians to break people. It was to make you feel like you were wasting your life away in here, and hopefully ensure that once you left this prison, you'd never want to come back. And you know what, I think it's about time we did some hard labour of our own today. For that, we'll be climbing up this Anglo-Saxon tower and its many, many stairs. Although if anyone here doesn't want to all come...
I wouldn't want to do this every hour.
Oh my god. You're right, Esme. Here we go.
you'd like to head through into there, please.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
Here, Esme.
Ah. Phew.
Now, of course, do you notice above your heads? Those there are the old Victorian water tanks. Held around 12,000 litres of water back in the day, which may sound like a lot, but it isn't really for a prison of 300 people every day. So once again, the inmates pushing the capstan wheel, really not doing a very useful task. We're moving far, far back into the 12th century regarding the history of this room. Back then, we were a true royal castle here at Oxford. And this room, it was the home of the Holy Roman Empress Matilda, Lady of the English. The granddaughter of William the Conqueror, and the only surviving legitimate child of Henry I. Now, for much of her early life, Matilda shipped off to foreign lands as part of marriage diplomacy, including marrying the Holy Roman Emperor Heinrich V, where she gets the title from. But when Henry I dies in 1135, Matilda, she is destined to become the next Queen of England. Except she won't be. She's a woman in the medieval world. Her claims are not respected like a man's, and she's absent from the country, unable to easily enforce that claim. The barons of England choose a man instead, Stephen of Blois, to take the throne. Stephen just so happens to be Matilda's cousin. And as you might imagine, Matilda, rather annoyed that her cousin gets to take the throne but not herself. Heading to the top of the tower. Climb up to the very top there, should be able to have an excellent view around.
Thank you. Wow, that was a climb and a half. Oh wow, what a view. Whew. So here I'll try to give the best view I can of Oxford, looking all around.
From up there at the very top you get around 10 miles of viewing, and of course wonderful for photos today. For the Anglo-Saxons though, a little bit more important for seeing incoming enemy armies, of course. So what of this castle remains standing? This tower, which remains standing because even though the parliamentarians wanted to pull it down, they couldn't. Because back in the day, on the castle mill stream just outside, you'll find the city's watermill attached to this tower. So this place was vital for grain production, and it had to remain standing. The other part, it's the mound outside, and no doubt you saw that mound on your way in here today. That mound is not natural, it's an artificial hill made by the Normans. Back in the day, on top of that mound, you're going to find a small tower known as the keep. The mound of the keep was collectively known as the motte of the castle, served as its final defensive bastion if the main walls were to fall. So vital was that mound for the castle's defence, they dug a well up there to ensure they always had clean drinking water. And of course we also have our Norman crypt still standing, but we'll talk more about that shortly. For now, one other thing to of course note, the windows around us, they're cross-shaped. Isn't for any religious function of course, these are arrow slits. Now from the vertical slit an archer can easily loose a bow, but from the horizontal slit gains some more room to aim. Of course from the outside, very difficult to shoot in. Now spend as long as you want up here, do take photos, have a look around, ask any questions if you have them of course. And then we'll all head back down those stairs.
Thank you.
Alright.
Well, that's just amazing. So I'm going to have a... Yeah, you come up, mate. You're all right. Right, now I've caught my breath. I'll go down and show you around the where the arrow slits are. Great view from here. Absolutely, really well positioned, really. And I'll just go around, show you. And that's where we were just upstairs. And here's one I can't fall out of. Well, let's just put the camera through. There you go. Looking down. This tiny little camera comes in handy at times. And again, we were down. This is where we came in, down there. And I filmed a little bit down there.
There was, of course, the Republican element from, well, most of them just wanted the king to not overreach his powers.
And that's where we were standing just before.
The first English Civil War, like 1642 to 46, the main period of fighting, it's mostly over that. And then heading down the town.
You be careful, Bateman. Hold on tight, alright?
I'll try.
Hold on tight, you'll be fine.
Try to like my shoes.
No, don't try and like your shoes, just concentrate. Yeah, just concentrate on it.
Anyway, I had to. I'm just doing it round and
You with me?
just a couple of steps up onto.
Okie dokie, that's good. You just hold on. Right here, look. We're near the bottom. Ooh, a little chink of light. Another light. Imagine, oh,
So that's where we were before. Now down to the... It's so much easier coming down.
no, really, the first time, no chance to get it.
Ta-da! I'm still alive. Some- Oh wow.
just like to head through to there. Do you mind just
Oh,
step
wow.
towards its head uneven?
This is amazing. So this is a Norman crypt, apparently. Just going through here. Oh wow! I want one of these underneath my house. This is amazing. And it's times like this I wish I brought my torch, but still you might be able to see some of that. I'll just put a little bit of light on.
Made it up and down St George's Tower. Now you find yourselves in the crypt of St George's Chapel. This chapel built in 1074, just 3 years off the original castle. But apparently because that Baron Robert Doyle, he had a nightmare down here. A nightmare with the edge of his bed to the Virgin Mary pointing down to the ground. Quite reasonably you interpret that as a sign that you're being damned to hell for your sins in life. And being a marauding Norman, well, Doyle has many sins to speak of. He commissions this chapel to try and make up for them. And does something else as well here, pays the monks to pray for his soul. It's a fairly common thing in the medieval era, but Doyle pays those monks an awful lot of money. They're going to be praying for his soul for well over a century after his death, to try and make sure it does pass up into heaven. And whilst they're praying here, those monks are studying. Long before the university University was officially founded here in Oxford, this was its centre of higher education, as the Collegiate Chapel of St George. We had scholars from across Britain, and we flourished in the 12th century. Our most famous scholar was a man by the name of Geoffrey of Monmouth, who would go on to write a legendary work amongst medievalists even today, a book called The History of the Kings of Britain. Now granted, Geoffrey's book makes some rather bold claims, among which is the idea that the first Britons were apparently Trojans, led by the grandson of Aeneas and guided by the goddess Diana herself to land on these shores. But there are some more famous, if still rather fanciful figures. King Lear, popularised by Shakespeare, and King Arthur, popularised by Monty Python. Of course, it's rather important that Geoffrey wrote about Arthur. His story is about the man, some of the first that we would recognise as Arthur today, including many popular elements of those stories for the first time, including, of course, the idea that Arthur was a king at all. That starts with Geoffrey. But all that writing, studying, and praying, that's going to be occurring on the floor above us. Remember, we are down here in the crypt. And back in the day, this served essentially as a storage place for the dead. In this crypt in the medieval era, bodies were kept for a few days or so they weren't exposed to the elements outside and they could be prepared for burial in here. They would have been buried roughly where the prison gift shop is nowadays, dug up around 60 skeletons during excavations there. Although despite that, this crypt back in the day looked beautiful, and the Normans really put an effort into making this place as nice as possible. Aside from the corpses they dumped down here, of course. They installed these 4 pillars here, over 900 years old. Now, as you can see, these ones are carved. They're carved to look like palm leaves. Also clearly had family crests carved into them at some point. They would have been painted back in the day as well. As with the ceiling to look like the night sky, and then around these walls would have hung tapestries. The Normans, like anyone, of course, they cared greatly for the burial of their dead. Although very sadly, this crypt lost for over a century. If you remember that the parliamentarians destroyed this castle, well, they also destroyed the chapel as well. This crypt was buried beneath rubble and forgotten about until the 1790s. At that point, prisoners, inmates assigned to put D-wing just above our heads, they accidentally rediscover this crypt. Now, the prison governor at the time, Daniel Harris, is going to do something quite interesting. He'll order his own prisoners to rebuild and expand this crypt. It's why these 2 pillars, here and here, exist. These ones are built by the inmates themselves, and it's why they look so different from the Norman pillars. They also had to rebuild the ceiling and the floor. Now, the floor, it is not ideal. It's made out of the recycled cobblestones of the streets of Oxford. That's why it's so uneven, kind of a patchwork. For those 2 pillars, the ceiling, those inmates did quite a good job down here rebuilding this place. And the prison governor, Daniel Harris, he wants to make sure they did. He wanted his inmates to learn stonemasonry skills down here. Skills they could then use on the outside to get a job and reintegrate with society. Hopefully, ensuring his prisoners would never come back here again. Although it is that prison I'll be taking you all into now. If you want to follow me back up those stairs, let's head into D-Wing at last. If you'd just like to head through into there, please, and do take a seat on the benches if you wish. Take a seat on the benches if you wish, and welcome to prison. This part of it, D-Wing, essentially serves as the medical wing of this place. So, on the floor above us in the 20th century, you'd have found the hospital wing of this prison. Although, also the place where the dangerous inmates got sent, those D-Day threats to their fellow prisoners. So again, on the floor above us, you're going to find the padded cell we throw people into for the night. No doubt, as you've also noticed, remove one of the walls here to make this a bit more spacious for all of us. Back in the day, prison cells, they are quite small indeed. Although in the 1980s, as this place is being slowly shut down, you'll find up to 3 men held in each one of the individual cells. And without toilets, they're still using slop buckets even in the 1980s. But moving far, far back into the 1570s, as you may well know, a time of great religious turmoil across Europe between Catholics and Protestants. Now on the throne here in England, we have the Protestant Queen, Elizabeth I, and she is terrified of a Catholic conspiracy to overthrow her government. So terrified she will ban Catholics from publishing books that promote their faith or speaking out against her. Here in 1577 in Oxford, we have a Catholic bookseller named Roland Jenks. He does exactly that. He publishes pamphlets denouncing the Queen and promoting the Catholic faith, for which he is quickly arrested and put on trial. He'll be convicted of a rather interesting crime, the crime of having a foul and saucy mouth. And then he is given a rather nasty punishment. This, the pillory. No doubt, you've all seen a pillory before, but you may not realise just how horrendous a punishment this actually is for a person. Of course, your hands, they go through these holes. Then your arms get pulled through. Your arms, they're pulled through, chained down to those manacles there. You can break your shoulder blades in that process. And then you're holding this position. This is painful. You might be in here for hours. Jenks was in here for 3 days and 3 nights on end. And importantly, he was in here in a public area. The whole point about this punishment was social humiliation. This was about making sure that you were known as a troublemaker to the local community, that you could not be trusted. So Jenks was in the pillory in a prominent square of Oxford where people were throwing things at him and slandering him. But it's going to get a lot worse. Jenks wasn't just pilloried, he was pilloried by the ears. It's where the jailer will take Jenks' ears, stretch them back, place them on the wooden boards of the pillory, and then get a hammer and 2 small nails. Jenks' ears were nailed into the pillory boards, which, as you might imagine, rather painful. But I'm afraid that's not the point of the punishment. That's going to come at the end. It is once again going to be about humiliation. Because when Jenks is to be finally free from this pillory, after 3 days and nights, those nails will not get removed for him. Instead, his hands are free from the manacles. He is given a knife instead, and he must cut off his own ears if he wants to leave this pillory. Leaving those ears on the boards to rot, and quite literally earmarking Jenks as a Catholic troublemaker, where the term comes from in English. Despite all of this, despite this horrendous punishment, Jenks, he'd actually live quite a nice life, because he's going to flee the country. As you might imagine, Protestant England isn't really for him anymore. He's going to leave the country for Catholic Flanders instead, and become a baker for a small college in the town of Douar. There, those rather nasty mutilated ears were actually a sign of just how much he sacrificed for his faith, would be well respected by his fellow Catholics. In fact, he lives well into the 1600s. The same can't be said for the men who gave him this punishment, though, the men who put him on trial. Because you see, about a week after Jenks' sentence was announced, 600 prominent wealthy men of Oxford, including the judges and jurors and sheriffs, they mysteriously fall ill. A week later, over 300 of them will be dead in an event known as the Black Seas of 1577. This event kills a descendant of the Baron Robert Doyle himself and terrifies the townspeople here. They have only one true, rational explanation for what has happened here: Catholic dark magic. Which, as far as they're concerned, Jenks used to curse the entire courtroom, and that was how those men fell ill. It's also one of the reasons why Jenks left for Flanders. He was about to be called trial for witchcraft as well. If you know anything about witch trials back in the day, you'll know they weren't exactly fair. Although nowadays, of course, we don't exactly believe in Catholic dark magic. What happened here was now bringing a disease instead: typhus. Typhus comes from fleas and filthy conditions. You can bet that England's jails back in the day are horrendously filthy. No doubt Jenks called the illness then. And then at his trial, when he was being told he was to be given this as his punishment, Jenks was furious. He shouted, he screamed, he spat on those rich and wealthy men of Oxford. And those men, they didn't have immunity to typhus, never had it before, were used to clean conditions as rich folk. So that's why they caught ill so rapidly and died in such large numbers. In fact, outbreaks of typhus like this, quite common here in England. Well into the 18th century, over 200 years after Jenks' time, you'll still find cases of rich and wealthy men dying of typhus that they caught from a prisoner at their trial. And it is that century, the 18th century, we'll all head into now. But into a cell which is far, far nicer than this one, practically luxurious. No typhus, I do promise. If you want to follow me. if we'd just like to head through to there, please. You can sit anywhere you like, chairs, benches, bed, any of them are good to sit on.
I'll sit with you.
Than the one you were previously in. However, this is a sign of what the prison system is like in this country in the 18th century. This is a private enterprise, so the government gives jailers basically no money. It doesn't even own the jails. So this one, it was run by Christchurch College, part of the university, and leased out to major families to run. They were expected to run it at a profit, of course, so the inmates pay for everything in here. Food, water, lodging, the wages of the jailers keeping them. If you're poor in here, of course, you're going to have a pretty horrendous time. You're getting crammed into a cell with several other people, and there's a good chance you're going into debt to pay for the most basic necessities of life. But if you're wealthy in here, you can actually have quite a nice time, even live in absolute luxury inside these walls. As was the case for this young lady here, Mary Blandy. She was the only child of a wealthy town clerk, Francis Blandy, from Henley-upon-Thames. Now things were going quite well for the Blandys, but by 1751 there's a bit of a problem. You see, Mary, she's almost 30 and unmarried. At the time, a rather scandalous thing would have her branded as a spinster. If she died without children, the family fortune would be gone forever. And Francis Blandy, her father, was most worried about that family fortune. So, putting that above his daughter's own welfare, he decides to advertise Mary with a £10,000 dowry. £10,000 being roughly 2.4 million in today's money. A rather impressive sum, and as you might imagine, someone does turn up. A man by the name of William Cranston. Now, to all observers, he does seem to be a fairly respectable British Army captain from Scotland, and Mary does fall in love with him. The wedding gets arranged, Cranston even moves in with the Blandys. But Francis, he is suspicious of Cranston and does some digging on the man. Finds out there's a bit of a problem for him and Mary getting married. Cranston is already married, with 2 children back in Scotland as well. So of course, the wedding has to be called off. Cranston sent away, Mary left utterly heartbroken by the whole experience. Now she's going to keep on writing to Cranston against her father's wishes. Cranston will keep on writing back. And one day he's going to send a letter in the mail. Attached is a small vial of white powder. Now this Mary, Cranston claimed to Mary, was a love potion. That if only she were to sprinkle this vial of white powder to her father's food and drink, he would simply fall in love with the idea of the marriage. All will be well again. Nowadays, if we receive small vials of white powder in the mail, we might be a tad more sceptical. But Mary gave this no second thought, it seems, put the stuff immediately into her father's food. And Francis would die within the week. His opinions about the marriage, mostly unchanged. One rather brief medical autopsy later, it's quite clear what has happened. Francis died of arsenic poisoning, arsenic found in the vial of white powder. Mary is arrested and taken into the jail to await her murder trial. Spending 6 long months inside these walls waiting for that, but during all that time she won't spend a single day in an actual prison cell. Remember, she's tremendously wealthy and this is a private system. Instead of living in one of these cells, she's going to hire out 2 rooms in the governor's mansions outside to live in. She'll hire servants, get good food and drink. She'll even have a Christmas party in here for all of her friends. The only actual sign that Mary Bland was a prisoner in here are these, ankle fetters. They're like shackles for your legs, make it very hard for you to run away, of course. But other than those, Mary's living her usual life of luxury. Until the day of her court trial, of course. Now at that point, things aren't looking so good. Cranston managed to evade the authorities and flee to the continent, burning the letters between him and Mary. So it's just Mary in trial for the murder of her father, and she doesn't have much of a defence to stand on. In fact, the judge, he wants to find Mary guilty. He wants to use her as an example to the rich and the wealthy of England that they are not above the law. So Mary, found guilty and sentenced to death. She'll be hung on the 6th of April 1752. A public hanging, of course. 6,000 people will turn out to see her die. Although, spare the worst fate, public dissection. Because back in the day, the Murderers Act was enforced in England. It demanded that all murderers after their hangings cannot be buried. They had to be dissected in front of a crowd of spectators as a final act of humiliation instead. Mary's wealth meant she escaped that, merely buried in Henley-upon-Thames, ironically enough next to her father. Now moving into the 19th century, things are going to get a little bit less grim in here. In fact, it's going to change quite dramatically, primarily about what the purpose of prison is. During the time of Mary, prison is not used to punish you. Instead, it is a holding place until your trial, and then you're going to be punished elsewhere. Typically, that would be the gallows. For over 200 crimes in 18th century Britain could you be sentenced to death. By the mid-19th century, that's basically reversed. Prison is now the main form of punishment for criminals. But that actually causes a serious problem. The 18th century prison system was simply not designed to accommodate the numbers it now must do in the 19th. So the government intervenes. It nationalises the prison system at last in the 1830s, and in fact agrees to pay for the prisoners' upkeep and well-being. In fact, they even mandate equal treatment for all prisoners. Although then they become extremely concerned that the Victorian poor may see prison as an appealing alternative to life on the outside. So to ensure they don't, and to try and keep their costs down, they will do their very best to make prison as miserable as humanly possible. It's why the hard labour you saw earlier was introduced, things like the capstan wheel, and another system, the silent system. You can't speak to anyone in a Victorian prison. In fact, you don't even have a name. You have a number on the back of your uniform. That's how the guards are going to address you. And if you're outside of your prison cell, you're going to be wearing a mask over your eyes to obscure your vision. You can't see your fellow prisoners, you can't talk to them, doing hard labour if you're outside of your cell all day long. Now I said this was to make you miserable. That's only partly true. The Victorians genuinely believed that this would give their prisoners good moral character and improve them over time. In reality, it drove many of them insane from spending too long in here. It didn't quite work out as hoped. By contrast, the jailers of the Victorian era, they're having a pretty good time. And it's not just because the government is actually paying them for once. They have all sorts of new technologies that they can bring to bear to better control their inmates. One of these being photography. Prison mugshots introduced in the 1860s. They quickly became a valuable tool for cataloguing inmates and importantly catching repeat offenders and giving them harsher punishments. And you know what? I think it's about time we figured out why you're all here in prison today. If you want to follow me into Jess's tower, let's get your mugshots taken at last. And of course,
If you'd like to say it.
It's not a picture, but we can buy them.
of course.
So many cool places to see here.
Now, of course, do come take a look at some of the mugshots we have on display. You may be surprised to see that our prisoners there posing, sitting in chairs. And the quality of the photography really quite good for
So that poor little girl was 7 when she was brought into here, but she died in the 1940s. She married an Italian, so we're going up there. I'm just going to wait a little bit until Gill's got herself up and just show you around. Just staying behind for once. There you go. Absolutely brilliant. And there she is. And apparently the photographer for the prison was so good, the inmates wanted to buy the pictures. Don't blame them. He was brilliant. Anyway, let's get up there. Let's find the others.
Instead, you're sent to this tower and expected to work off your debt slowly but surely. The most likely way you're doing that is by spending 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, finding work in the town. But the thing is, you're still paying for everything in here. Food, water, lodging, the wages of the jailers keeping you. So it took an awfully long time to work off those debts. Indeed, the prisoner who's in here the longest could be in here for over 30 years in the 18th century just trying to pay off that debt. That is over half his expected lifetime. A tremendously unfair system, of course, one that targets the poor of this country the most. Now, I am afraid that the tour does end here today, but this is where the exhibition space begins. Starting from over there, with the birth of Oxford in the Anglo-Saxon era, round to the English Civil Wars, the destruction of the castle, you can then walk into the medical wing. Read more about the 18th, 19th and 20th century history of this prison. Now, if those stairs weren't enough for you, I am glad to say there are some wonderful examples of Victorian hard labour you can all try out. And you can go back, visit any parts of the tour I've been on today, take a look around, take photos. Just please don't go back up the towers, all health and safety reasons, as you might imagine. But I do hope you have all enjoyed the tour here today, and I do hope all of you have a safe and a pleasant day here in Oxford. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was really good, really enjoyable. Oh, this is where we were earlier. That's where we were, down there, and I started the video from literally just to the left there, where the grass is. But what a great time we've had. So I really would encourage you to come here to the castle and prison. It's been good. And the mound is there. Man-made mound apparently. Another tower here that we're in. I just love the brick, absolutely gorgeous brick. And back in the room again. I'm just going to go through, Gill, and have a look. So I think 1629 to 40, Charles I rules without Parliament. Got there? Did you know the word cavalier was first applied to soldiers of Charles I by parliamentarians in 1642 and was originally used as a term of abuse? I didn't know that. It was later adopted by royalist supporters themselves. In turn, the royalists dubbed the opposing forces Roundheads, a reference to the close cropped hairstyles worn by some parliamentarians. So that's where cavalier came from, and Roundheads, there you go. And that hat he's wearing there is very similar to that one there. Right, 1558, Queen Elizabeth I becomes Queen of England in 1558. Some copies of old Oxfordian manuscripts there. Looks like a cannonball, yeah, cannonball, 19th century cannonball. What's that in there? Oh, that's the weight of the cannonball, if you can pick that up. I'll just walk on through. Oh wow. It's okay. And in there, about the cell that's going on. That ain't good. The Black Panther. Donald Nielsen, the Black Panther. Donald Nielsen, 1936, was a misfit who turned to crime when his business ventures failed. Oh, look at that. The straitjacket that they wore back in the day. All the old money there, the old wallet, all the old penknife. I used to have one like that. I do have some old English money. Bit more modern, kind of. Foodie things, not brilliant. And just show you around here. Oh, look at the old beds here. And more stairs. I don't know where this leads to. Exit. Changing scenes. Different things have been filmed here. John Thor starred in Inspector Morse, which was filmed in Oxford. The prison was used as a location for The Wench is Dead in 1998. Glenn Close's character, Cruella de Vil, filmed her prison sequences in Oxford Prison. So right here, in 102 Dalmatians, released in the year 2000. And a wing of Oxford Prison was turned into a Chinese prison for the filming of The Spy Game in 2000, starring Brad Pitt. Interesting, didn't know that. So, we'll carry on walking back on through. Bit of a better view of this bed. And just here, little cabinet there, bedside cabinet. Liverpool, Liverpool, Liverpool. There's a few Liverpool stamps there. Wormwood Scrubs, Parkhurst, Wakefield Prison, Liverpool, Wakefield, Liverpool, Liverpool, Wormwood Scrubs again, and Hull. Is that all the places somebody had done? I don't know. There you go. It's Gingerella. There's something interesting there about some of the filming they've done here in this place. Glenn Close was here. Also, what's his name? Brad Pitt, he was here as well, and they've been here. And of course you know about John Thor. All coolie beans. Yeah. Yeah. I never knew that. Never knew at all. There's a lift there, but I don't know whether it's in operation. Must be operated by a team member. So where do we go now, do you know? I haven't looked at that bit. I just saw stairs. So from this part, the tour's finished now. And of course you can walk around yourself, but to be fair, that tour was brilliant. It was so informative.
I won't be able to go.
Yeah, I'll just take a quick look, I think. Really good, isn't it? Oh yeah, I remember they used to show these on TV, on BBC, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the photo fit things, facial composition kit it's got there. So you've got all the female ones there. It's very clever system. And that's what we had to rely on at one time before we used PCs to... There's the Black Panther, looking in a bit of a bad way there.
What, that way, can you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exit.
I'm just going to get one more shot of this. Won't be a minute, I'll just walk down here. And then that's back through there where we all had our photograph taken and mug shots done. Well, I thought I'd just show you that. And it's here we go out. Okay, push. Yeah.
We should have had one together.
So we are back outside again. I have to say that tour was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed that. We decided not to get our mugshot photos because, well, personally they looked awful. They were brilliant pictures, but we didn't really. I pulled a strange face. Jill pulled a strange face and we decided not to bother. But I'll tell you what, it was well worth it. They do a digital copy of the photos there, which you can have for £10 apparently. And yeah, I'll just have a.
Well, you need to take. I'm going to sit here and find out where.
I'm just going to walk round really
okay,
and
but
outside.
If you need, that's your proof of for going in. If they ask you for your ticket.
Okay. All right, love. So I'm just going to see what's over here. So you can go up on the mound, but I'm not really bothered. I filmed it from up there when I was up on the tower. So I'm just taking a look through here to see what's here. Can you get through? Yes, you can. Oh, I see. Oh, right. So this is the hotel. So it's just the hotel. But there you go, you can stay at the hotel here. I meant to say earlier when I was doing my start that the lady was asking us if we wanted to go to the entrance of the hotel or the castle, and that's the hotel area. So I didn't like filming in there if I wasn't staying and just walking round. But it was just the reception, so but still very interesting. I'll get back over to Jill. Please do not climb on the mound. So the mound is just up there. And I'm preserving myself. I do have arthritis, so I'm not gonna bother today. So that part, you stay in cells and it's your hotel room. That is just cool. That is really cool. So as I say, the mound's there, you can go up, but I'm not going to go. Anyway guys, that was the tour of the castle part, what's left of the castle at Oxford, and also the prison. And do I recommend it? Yeah, I tell you, I've been really happy with this, and I'd be happy to come back again. Anyway, after mistakenly going into the hotel.
That's where you go to the mound. That's where you put your key number in.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I'm not bothered going up there. I'm not ready. My hips have had enough.
Your hips don't lie either, do they?
Whatever, you know.
Shakira, is that
yeah,
you?
that's it. And I can't do my Shakira impressions while I'm up there. Anyway, that's another story. Yeah, so I will catch you in the next one, wherever we're going now in Oxford, and be sure to check back. So it'd be awesome if you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao for now.